In October 1962, the world faced the Caribbean crisis. In response to the Soviet missiles allocation in Cuba, the United States blocked the Island of Freedom. Tension among nuclear powers was growing. The Soviet strategic bombers were relocated to the borders closer to the targets in Europe and America. Exhausting combat watch began. Alert level was maximum. Nuclear bombs were suspended in Bombay. Crew commanders received sealed envelopes with codes to charges and route maps with exact targets for each aircraft. The same was happening overseas. All involved in those days experienced enormous tension. Even incomplete knowledge of the nuclear weapons capabilities drew an astonishing picture of the aftermath. The world was on the verge of the Third World War. The climb to this peak of confrontation started right after the Second World War. Different understanding of the post-war development placed leaders of the former Allied countries at the opposite sides of the barricade. In March 1946, Winston Churchill pronounced his notorious words of the Iron Curtain, which started confrontation and the violently spinning arms race. The deliberate demonstration by the Americans of the atomic bomb's capabilities in Japan made the Soviet leadership to undertake urgent measures on the creation of both a similar weapon and means of its delivery. Enormous resources were thrown to the implementation of such programs. Development of the Soviet A-bomb was gaining momentum. Two variants were assumed for its delivery: aircraft and missiles. While in designing missiles, Soviet engineers were based on the German experience, creation of the nuclear weapons-carrying aircraft went in a different direction. In 1944, several American B-29 bombers made an emergency landing in the Soviet Far East. There were no such long-range bombers in the Soviet Union, so the decision was obvious. The aircraft should be copied. It was B-29 that dropped A-bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The task was assigned to Andrei Tupolev, who traditionally dealt with heavy bombers. The copy was called Tu-4. Timing was tough. The carrier was supposed to be ready by the time the Soviet A-bomb appears. The work started. No deviations from the original were allowed. Over 900 institutions and design bureaus were involved and new research organizations created. The aircraft was disassembled and drawings of each part were made. They amounted to over 40,000. Every single detail was copied, even a photo camera which was allegedly left by one of the American crew members. Creation of the aircraft significantly increased the level of the Soviet radio and tool engineering industries, gave an impulse to the development of new technologies and materials. The engines were not copied. Parameters of the engines designed by Arkady Shvetsov were close to the Americans. While B-29 had large caliber machine guns, Tu-4 was equipped with cannons. In September 1945, the Americans performed a long-range demonstrational flight of a group of B-29 from Hokkaido, Japan, to Chicago, Illinois. It was a message to Kremlin that the latter was within the nuclear bomber's range. Tupolev, as coordinator of all Tu-4 works, obtained most wide authority. In May 1947, less than within 2 years, the first machine piloted by Nikolai Rybko took off. In August, 3 new bombers were shown at the Tushino Air Parade. It was important for Stalin to demonstrate such aircraft to the potential enemy as soon as possible. Tu-4 was put in production at several factories even before the tests ended. Officially, the aircraft was passed into service in May 1949, but combat pilots started to master it much earlier. The first Tu-4 joined one of the Soviet Western air units. The aircraft was ready. What about the bomb? The first Soviet ground nuclear charge was tested in 1949. Improvements of the air bomb continued until 1951. On October 18, the first Soviet nuclear air bomb was dropped at Semipalatinsk. At a special airdrome, the fully charged A-bomb is being loaded on the Tu-4 bomber. The bomb is suspended. The crew is ready for takeoff. The A-bomb carrying aircraft starts off on a combat mission. The aircraft approaches the target at an altitude of 8,000 meters. The bomb is dropped. Explosion. It was filmed from an altitude of 8,000 meters by a camera installed on the aircraft. However, Tu-4 did not become A-bomb mass carrier. Only 18 machines out of 800 produced were refurbished. Tu-4 had a range of only 5,100 kilometers, enough to reach Europe and the American bases in the Middle East and Japan. It could not reach the United States itself. From those bases, the enemy could reach practically any point of the Soviet Union. In